No King's Terror. Fake cop assassinate Minnesota Democrat who blocked health care for illegals. I told y'all. What have I been saying? When Democrats don't get what they want, they do things like this. They riot, they kill, they steal. This is what they do. So they assassinated this poor Minnesota Democratic representative because she voted to block health care for illegals. It's not right. And this is what the Democrats are for. They want this, even though they try to pretend like they don't. But what do you think happens when you say that Republicans are Nazis? What do you think happens when you call people like Donald Trump Hitler? People think it's their duty to take them out. So they think people like this this guy that assassinated these Democrats, they think that they're above the law, that they're doing a service for the people because they're getting rid of so-called Nazis. It's just wrong. And the Democrats refuse to speak out against what's happening. They continue to call this peaceful protesting and stuff like that, this No Kings thing, when we know that this is a color revolution that's happening right now. They want rioting in the streets. They want politicians to be murdered. But we're going to talk a little bit about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this important information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. And I got tons of content over there. So check that out. I just dropped a new one today, actually. So check those out. Also, follow me on X and Instagram. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from Zero Hedge, and they report that a man posing as a police officer carried out a politically motivated attack in Minnesota, fatally shooting Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, in what Governor Tim Walz called, quote, an act of targeted political violence. I wonder if he would be speaking out against, would he be saying this if before he made this statement, he knew that this was a person that actually supports the Democratic Party. But the government also wounded another Democratic lawmaker and that lawmaker's wife. Tim Walz said, quote, our state lost a great leader and I lost the dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the state of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service, Governor Walz told reporters at an earlier morning news conference, adding, quote, she was a formidable public servant, a fixture, and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable and will be missed. And so I'm not going to play the video here, but Paul A. Spula, however you pronounce the name, said Tim Walz delivers a statement on the recent attack against two Minnesota lawmakers. He hypocritically speaks out against violent rhetoric after he's been promoting violence for years as governor. Absolutely, he has. Walz incited riots and let Minnesota burn. He's the evil. Remember the Summer of Love. Remember what happened in Minnesota. He is a hypocrite. But the second politically motivated attack targeted State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, both of whom were shot multiple times and required surgery, according to Walz. According to law enforcement officials, the gunman attempted to assassinate Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, roughly 90 minutes after killing Hortman and her husband. Quote, the unidentified suspect, which I think now has been identified. I'll look it up in a second. The unidentified suspect, who had a list of other targets, fled on foot after engaging in a firefight with officers outside of Hoffman's home, ABC News reported. Now, Dan Bongino, the FBI deputy director, wrote on X that the federal agency, quote, is fully engaged on the ground in Minnesota and is working in collaboration with our local and state partners. President Donald Trump issued a statement condemning the violence. He said, quote, such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. God bless the great people of Minnesota, a truly great place. And the plot thickens after the Minnesota State Patrol disclosed on X that law enforcement found No Kings flyers inside the suspect's vehicle. They said, quote, and we know that the No Kings thing, that's the leftist thing that's going around the country. They're trying to push, basically they call it they call it protest, but we all know what this No Kings thing really is. They're pushing they want riots and stuff in our streets. That's what this is really about. This is, remember I can't remember the Waltons heiress that's putting money into this, and a bunch of leftist organizations like George Soros, Open Border Societies, and people like that are all putting into this No King stuff that's going on. This is what I've been saying is the color revolution. But he said, quote, the photo is of flyers inside the vehicle of the suspect in today's shooting, the Minnesota State Patrol said. See the No Kings thing here. Shortly before Minnesota Rep. Melissa Hortman was shot and killed, she broke down in tears in front of the cameras after siding with Republicans. Hortman was the lone Democrat who voted to cut health care access for adult illegal immigrants. So I'm gonna play this clip, and while I'm playing this clip, I'm gonna see if I can find the name of the guy responsible for this attack. Give me 1 second here. Okay, let's play this clip. Here we go.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
DFL Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman emotional following the House's adjournment from a special session Monday. Hortman was the lone DFL lawmaker to cast a vote to cut Minnesota care access for undocumented immigrants. It's a move she made with a heavy heart.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
The bill was deeply unpopular with members of the DFL caucus. Members have repeatedly expressed frustration that the bill was part of a compromise, one that would ensure the necessary GOP votes to pass the rest of the state budget.
We are tremendously disappointed and gut-wrenched at this decision.
What is that?
At this compromise that compromises our communities that are most vulnerable.
Oh my gosh, these people are so
knows
weird.
She let down her own caucus members with the vote.
They're right to be mad at me. I think some of them are pretty angry. I think that their job was to make folks who voted for that bill feel like crap, and I think that they succeeded.
Over in the Senate, a similar situation unfolded. Senate Majority Leader Erin Murphy forced to vote for a bill she too disagreed with to uphold the integrity of their compromise.
This one hurt. This one is a wound because of its reason. My colleagues across the aisle set this as their number one priority.
Asked whether the move would...
Well, this has to happen. If we keep giving these illegals handouts, then they're going to continue coming and taking away from our resources. Oh, here we go. I don't have to pull up the article. I do have another article here, but they got it in this article. Who the suspect is. It says breaking: the suspect who killed Rep. Melissa Hortman this morning has been identified as 57-year-old Vance Boyter. Law enforcement tells it says Boyter was a Tim Walz appointee to one of the governor's boards. What a shock. He's connected to Tim Walz, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about this guy here. So this comes from the Gateway Pundit. Suspect lawmaker assassination was a Tim Walz appointee, and he leads an international security firm. Wow, right? Like the plot thickens. The Gateway Pundit reports the suspect in the rampage shooting of Minnesota Democrat State Senator John Hoffman and State Rep. Melissa Hortman and their spouses was an appointee of Democrat Governor Tim Walz, according to reports. And remember, Tim Walz is the one that's going around calling conservatives, calling Republicans Nazis, so it makes sense that someone he appointed will go and assassinate someone that votes for to stop giving resources basically to illegal immigrants. Well, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz announced Saturday morning that State Rep. Melissa, we already talked about all that. We talked about what he said. But on Saturday afternoon, the Blaze correspondent Julio Roles reported, quote, I'm told by a police source in Minnesota, the suspect is in the shooting of Minnesota state lawmakers is Vance Luther Boyter. The identity of the suspect was confirmed by the New York Post and multiple other outlets. Bolter was appointed by Waltz in 2019 to serve on the governor's Workforce Development Board, but also leads an international security firm. Wow. Is he a spook? It appears it is the same Bolter who was appointed to governor's Workforce Development Board in 2019. He was appointed to the Governor's Workforce Development Council in 2016 by then Governor Mark Dayton. Roses continued. His wife also appears to have interned for Governor Waltz directly in 2010. However, the Gateway Pundit has not been able to confirm this relationship independently. It has been reported that the suspect was dressed up as a police officer when he went to the lawmakers' homes and shot the two couples. I mean, that's scary. Bolter is the director of security or patrols at Pretoria Security, a security firm in the state. The firm's website features staff dressed in uniforms that closely resemble those of law enforcement. Wow. Look at that. Man, a biography of Bolter on the Patriot website states doctor, and he's a doctor, so maybe a PhD. Vance Bolter has been involved with security situations in Eastern Europe, Africa, North America, and the Middle East, including the West Bank, Southern Lebanon, and the Gaza Strip. He brings a great security aspect forged by both many on-the-ground experiences combined with training by both private security firms and by people in the U.S. military. He has worked for the largest U.S. oil refining company, the world's largest food company based in Switzerland, and the world's largest convenience retailer based in Japan. Vance has focused all his experience to make sure Praetorian Guard security services cover the needs you have to keep your family and property safe. Both the LinkedIn also lists him as the CEO of Red Lion Group. So here he is here. The police arrived at Hortman's residence to check on them after the shooting at Hoffman's home and encountered the suspect, at which time Brooklyn Park police officers encountered an individual who immediately fired at them, and they exchanged gunfire, and the individual was able to escape during that exchange of gunfire. Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Superintendent Drew Evans said at a press conference on Saturday. The shooter's car, which was left at the scene, was littered with flyers printed with "No Kings," which we already talked about, a direct nod to the unhinged protest planned against President Donald Trump's administration. A manifesto was also located containing a list of other politicians. I can't wait to read that manifesto. Hopefully the FBI releases it. Again, a manhunt for Bolter is currently underway. The No Kings protests in the state have been canceled. Wow. This is crazy. This is what happens when you have supposedly NGOs and you have billionaires and elites like the Waltons supporting riots and things like that. That's what this No Kings thing is really about. It's not a peaceful protest. It's about committing offenses. It's about scaring people into their will. This is terrorism. That's what terrorism is. It's scaring people into joining your side politically. And that's exactly what's going on now with the leftists. They are committing terrorist acts. They are rioting. They are doing all sorts of nonsense to people. And we're fed up with it. People are fed up with it. I don't know why they think this is going to help their cause, but it definitely isn't. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave y'all comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.